Well, hello and whoa, almost fell off my bed. Welcome back to part 2 on my Ask Reddit series, where we look at the funny Ask Reddit threads that revolve around the differences between the US and the UK. If you didn't see my video last week, we talked about the weird American things that people are too European to understand. And today, we look at a thread on Ask Reddit called Americans of Reddit. What about Europe makes you go, thank goodness we don't have that here. As usual, if you're new here and you want to join the family, please hit subscribe and ring the bell because I make new videos every Sunday. So without further ado, let's jump into the first one. We have no screens in windows. You don't realize how much you miss them until there's a pigeon in your flat. In your flat? Americans of... What American uses the word flat? Besides me, because I've lived in both. I smell something fishy. But also, yeah, why aren't there screens on any of the windows or doors in the UK? I genuinely don't know. I grew up in a couple different homes in the US, and every single one of them, you have your windows, and then behind the window is the screen. And it's great because bugs don't fly in. So in the summer, you can have all your windows open with nice cross breeze flying through, hear the crickets and cicadas outside, and they don't come in because you've got screens. Even screen door, it's just nice. Why don't they have that here? Everyone's going on about like double glazed. Okay, I don't care about your donuts, sir. I just want screen doors. The amount of times I've had like a really loud fly in my room in the UK, well, I don't know. We should make a movement. Put screens in doors and windows and Macs. Pickpockets. Are pickpockets just a thing in Europe? I know they are. I see signs everywhere in London. I see signs everywhere when I've traveled in like Paris and Germany. It's always like, watch out for pickpockets. I guess pickpockets in the States more or less just kind of mug you. You have more muggings in the US. Is that true? I don't even know. To be fair, I've never been pickpocketed in the States, but my first year in the UK, I had my backpack under my chair in a pub in central London, and it was gone. There goes my laptop. I had an unedited video on it. Will never see the light of day. I had some Bitcoin way back when I invested in that. Well, we made mistakes in our lives. They didn't, by stealing my freaking backpack. So yeah, I guess there are more pickpockets in Europe, or at least there's a lot more signs telling people to watch out for pickpockets. Maybe they exist in the US, they just don't tell you about it. Shitty ass dryers, American living in Europe. I've not really noticed that to be a big thing. To be fair, this home I'm living in now is like the first place I've lived in with a dryer. Most homes I've lived in the UK, you just have a drying rack where you hang things out. So I haven't really noticed because this dryer is pretty good. It does leave things a bit damp though. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Paying to use a toilet. Yes, retweet. Horrible. I don't know why that's a thing in Europe. I don't know why we as a people in Europe were like, you know what? Natural body function, you gotta do it, pay. No. I like that in the States, you can go anywhere and there's a public bathroom to use. Unless you go to like a private establishment that might have a sign saying you do have to buy something to use the restroom, so you do have to pay in a way. But you're still getting something out of it besides peeing. The amount of like places in Germany where you go to the Bahnhof or the train station and they're like £2 to enter and you're like, what? Come on. Why are you accepting pounds? It's supposed to be euros. You fake. But yeah, it is really messed up. I hope some country passes legislation to ban that as a service. Sure, you can always go out looking for a McDonald's or a Starbucks, but sometimes when you gotta go, you gotta go. And that extra money you have to give away just to do that, it just feels wrong. Having to pay to use the bathroom gets me pissed off. The price of gas, or for my buddies across the pond, petrol. Now, I don't drive, so it's not really as big of a noticeable thing to me, but I do know that the price of gas is like 2 times what it is in most of the states. Yeah, it's bad, but also public transport's pretty great. If you don't need to drive, you don't have to drive. The US has such a big driving culture that it is dependent on gasoline. It has loads of sources of gasoline, and so it makes sense that it is a bit cheaper than a lot of Europe where they try and focus on other methods of transportation. Maybe that's why I haven't done many road trips in Europe. The lack of good Mexican food. Now that I think about it. Chipotle, there's like one of those in London. We've also got like a couple places for burritos, but yeah, there's not really a lot of good Mexican places. It makes sense. It's not bordering us. We have a lot of foods from all over Europe, but Mexican specifically, if that's what you fancy, I guess we could work on that. I went to a Mexican restaurant in Slovenia and they brought out Doritos with salsa. Wow. That's bad. A lot of places in Europe don't have air conditioning, even though they could really use it. Yes, 1,000 times yes. I talk about this all the time. I don't know why the UK has such a hatred for air conditioning. It's amazing. Every place in the US, you'll find air conditioning. Every establishment. In the UK and a lot of Europe, no aircon anywhere. I guess it comes from the fact that a lot of the places in the US are very new, so they have the aircon built in. But I don't know, I remember even as a kid, there were loads of ads all the time for like buying an air conditioning unit to put next to your house to air condition your house, and it was just a really big thing. In the UK, you don't really see that anywhere. I don't really see many advertisements for air conditioning. It's just kind of like, buy a fan, deal with the heat and complain about it. British culture. Their level of smoking. You know what? I actually did notice this when I first moved to the UK. I thought, everyone was smoking. It was really weird. You'd go out in London at night and just walk on the streets and there'd be so many people smoking fags all over the place. It was very strange, especially if you go to France. Oh my God, France and Spain, they smoke so much. It's grim. As someone who really hates the smell of smoke, and when it gets into my nose, it gives me a migraine, I hate it, so I do not like it. I've noticed that in the UK, it has decreased a lot since I've moved here. I was just in Florida last week, and I went into a Wawa, and there I could see all the different cigarette brands right there, Marlboro, and that's the only one I can think of right now. There's all the cigarettes brands right there. You can just pick one and choose. However, in the UK, they have those behind an opaque cabinet. You have to ask for them to open it, and even then, it's just the names of the cigarettes. There's no branding, there's none of that. It's just name of cigarette brands, name of cigarette brand, and that's it. Also, on every single pack of cigarettes they sell in the UK, they have a picture of someone with a gross face, and it's like, smoking ruins your teeth, or smoking kills, and every single time you lift a cigarette, you get this thing. Instead of saying like, this is delicious, it says, you're dumb. So even though you might think a lot of Europeans do smoke, at least the UK is working on it. I can't say that much for the rest of Europe, I don't know. Saying that now, I remember going to like Disneyland Paris and I made a joke that it was just gonna be loads of French people smoking. There were cigarette butts all over the place and I was like, in Disney? It ain't Disney, it's Disneyland Paris. It's not even Paris, it's so far outside of Paris. Piers Morgan, please don't let him come back here. Hey, you can't throw Piers Morgan on us, okay? No one wants Piers Morgan. The US has its own issues with like Trump and Mitch McConnell and Jim Jordan and all those like horrible Republican people. Every country has their peers. We should just peer pressure them to leave. My wife and I were starving and went to a Burger King in Italy. Of course, the finest Italian cuisine. And everything was just like any other Burger King, except when we sat down and took out all our food, we could not find the ketchup. Turns out you had to pay for ketchup packs. Yeah, it is weird. That is something that is annoying about living in Europe. Why is that a thing? When I moved to the UK, I genuinely just thought that was a thing that the company did worldwide, and it just happened to be after I moved. So I was like, oh, you have to pay for ketchup packets now? That's really frustrating. Darn you, McDonald's. But yet they don't do it in the States? Why? Fries should come with ketchup or mayonnaise or some sauce. Who eats them dry? A monster? And I know they don't do this at every establishment, but it definitely has happened to me multiple times throughout Europe where I had to pay extra just for ketchup or mayo. Come on. Canadian here, I love Europe, but the population density and crowds there is enough to drive me crazy. Really? I guess as a Canadian that makes sense, but America has big cities. Obviously there's large expanses of land where there aren't a lot, but I don't think Europe's that different. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't really see population density to be that big of a thing. I live in London and I still don't feel like it's that crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. No. I've only been to Europe once, specifically Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. There's a lot that they do better, but the one thing I didn't like was that sparkling water is somewhat standard there, and also they don't have ice in their drinks. Yeah, that's just the Schengen area. That's literally just like the German-speaking countries. They're all weird. They're freaks with it. I have a friend that has a machine in her kitchen that turns the tap water into sparkling water. You have a problem. It's not good. Luckily the UK does not have an obsession with sparkling water as much as the Germans do, who are like, yeah, I like to have different types of hard water. We have the super sparkle, the little sparkle, the kind of Kohlensäure. No, thank you. Okay, no bitter. 9 bitter. Oh, you want 9? 9. Just not a fan. Also, I have not noticed the lack of ice in drinks. I genuinely haven't. I personally usually don't like ice in my drink, because it just dilutes the flavor of the drink, and also ice is probably the least sanitary of all the things in a restaurant. But I mean, if you really want ice in drinks, I'm sure you could just ask for it. This guy literally lived my exact experience my first week in Munich. I'm really glad everything's open on Sundays. I lived in Germany for a few months and didn't plan groceries for the first weekend. Grocery store was closed. Didn't have anything, so I ended up eating Pizza Hut. It's a relatable story, to me specifically. If you're in Germany, buy your groceries on Saturday. How hard it is to get meals outside of mealtime. This is a big thing. I remember when I was in Malta and I wanted to get lunch at like 3 p.m. and I went to a restaurant and they were like, oh, sorry, we're not open for dinner until 5. And I was like, what? What do you mean? They closed for lunch at 2. And then 2 to 5, they just chill around. No one needs food around that time. What? It is weird that in Europe they do have specific times at restaurants where you have to go if you want food, and if you go out of those meal periods, you don't really have many options left. I've never had an issue like this in London per se, but I've definitely suffered from this in a lot of European countries. Maybe Europeans are just really big on their like schedules, and they're like, this is when I eat. No other time. No exceptions. No American lemonade. Yes, that is a big crime that Europeans commit. There's no such thing as American lemonade at all. It's very tragic. If you ask for a vodka lemonade, they give you a vodka mix with Sprite. Sprite ain't lemonade, okay? That's seltzer, watery, flavory stuff. No thank you. All I want is lemon juice, some water, and a frick ton of sugar, please. You really can't get it unless you make it yourself. It's one of those sad things that I miss the most, because you used to be able to get it from loads of different restaurants in the US. Europe, they're like, no thank you. Haggis. What's wrong with haggis, man? It's delicious. It's cultural food from Scotland. I've had it on pizza before. I've had it for Burns night. If you don't like haggis, don't eat haggis. I find that's a weird thing to complain about Europe. It's like going to Italy and being like, I don't like pizza. Don't eat pizza, you uncultured swine. In some European countries, offensive speech can get you arrested. Yeah, because it's hate speech, you diddy. It's not that hard. This is the weird one I find for most Americans that are like, yeah, well, in America, I'm allowed to say really racist things. Why would you want to, are you proud of that? I mean, I like being able to say anything I want in the UK. I'm not going to be using hate speech, so that part of the law doesn't bother me. The people defending like, you should be able to be really hateful and use hate speech. Well, interesting. Obviously, I understand like the logical argument behind it, but I'm also like, okay. Interesting. So my question to you is, are there any other weird European things you're very thankful don't exist in your country? Leave them in the comments. We'll have a little fun chat about it. And if you're new here and you want to join the Edinger channel family, please be sure to subscribe and ring that bell because I make new videos every Sunday. New videos like these guys. Wow. It's crazy. Integrated outros. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.